The First Red Scare was a period of time after World War I when intense fear spread throughout the United States due to communism allegedly trying to take over the government. The fear of communism led to false accusations of being communist against many innocent people, but it also caused the government to use more power than it should, going beyond the legal limits, also known as a form of government overreach. After the Red Scare, the immigration policies, labor unions, and the suppression of civil liberties were all reformed. The first ever speculated ideas regarding communism occurred in the 4th century BCE. Plato, an ancient Greek philosopher who lived from around 428 BCE to 347 BCE, wrote a work which he named the Republic. This work described an optimal society in which its government distributes its power to the needs of its citizens. However, the idea of modern communism is widely thought to be introduced in 1848 by Karl Marx alongside Friedrich Engels. Together they published the Communist Manifesto. Nonetheless, this idea only stayed as a theory. Vladimir Lenin, a Russian politician, political theorist, and the first head of Soviet Russia's government, was the lead of the first successful communist revolution in 1917. After World War I, many were afraid that dangerous ideas like communism were going to spread throughout the United States. The Russian Revolution in 1917 made these fears even bigger, as people worried a similar uprising could happen in America. At the time, the country faced economic problems, labor strikes, and competition for jobs. This caused hatred and suspicion towards immigrants. A series of bombings in 1919 increased public fear and panic. Many Americans began to believe that radicals and foreigners were responsible for the distress. This tense atmosphere set the stage for the Palmer key event of the Red Scare was called the Palmer Raids. Its duration lasted from 1919 to 1920. After World War I, many Americans were worried about the spread of communism, especially after the Russian Revolution in 1917, when communists took control of Russia. It left citizens with fear of communist reform, along with bombings and the chaos of labor. All of these factors together reformed the Red Scare. Anyone that displayed any sort of disrespect towards government or were caught highly praising Vladimir Lenin, a Russian revolutionary, were faced with terrible consequences, including death or jail time. People feared that similar revolutionary ideas could spread throughout the United States. Tensions grew when several bombs were sent through the mail to government officials and businessmen. Over months, more bombs and more incidents occurred. Over the bombing, over the bombs exploded outside of the home belonging to Attorney General It was suspected that immigrants originating from Europe that had intent on social and political reform to overthrow the government were behind the disruption with the bombings. In response, Palmer and a young official named J. Edgar Hoover decided to take strong action. They organized a series of raids across the country to find and arrest people they thought were dangerous radicals. Police and federal agents stormed homes, offices, and meeting halls without proper search warrants. Over 6,000 people were arrested, many being immigrants. Some were held without charges for long periods, and about 500 people were deported from the country. The Palmer raids were supposed to protect America from revolution, but they ended up violating many civil rights. Most of the people arrested had done nothing wrong. As time went on, the public began to see that the government had overreacted out of fear. By 1920, the panic started to fade, and the first Red Scare came to an end. Palmer raids showed how fear and suspicion can lead a nation to go too far with intention of security. The first Red Scare was felt immediately across the United States. Many people became fearful and suspicious of anyone who held different political views or came from another country. This fear caused thousands of innocent people to be accused of being communists without any real evidence. The government carried out mass arrests and deportations through the Palmer raids. As a result, people's rights were often ignored and trust in the government began to weaken. Newspapers and politicians spread panic, which only made the fear grow stronger. The Red Scare created a nationwide atmosphere of fear and division with Americans. Red Scare had several long-term effects on the United States. One major effect was a growing fear and distrust in immigrants, especially those from Eastern and Southern Europe. Many Americans worried that immigrants might bring their communist ideas into the country. This fear led to stricter immigration laws such as Emergency Quota Act of 1921 and the Immigration Act of 1924, which regarded and limited how many people could enter the U.S. Another long-term effect was the increase in government power and surveillance. During the Palmer raids, the government ignored people's rights in the name of protecting national security.
The first Red Scare also made people afraid to speak out or join groups that associated with speaking out, since they could be accused of being radicals. Over time, this fear weakened the labor movement and discouraged political activism. The first Red Scare left a lasting impact on the United States by spreading fear, limiting freedoms, and increasing suspicion towards those with different political ideas or backgrounds.
Government and business leaders believed that the U.S. was in danger of a communist or anarchist revolution. Officials saw strikes, protests, and activist groups as threats to national security, leading to raids, arrests, and deportations of suspected troublemakers. Business owners supported these actions because they weakened labor unions and helped maintain control over workers.
Contrary to government and business leaders, labor unions, reformers, and immigrants believed the government's response was an overreaction and excuse to silence their disagreement. Many believed the Red Scare violated free speech and targeted immigrants unfairly. Labor unions maintained that their strikes and efforts to improve wages and working conditions were not revolutionary, yet they were frequently branded as un-American.
Overall, the first Red Scare showed how fear can strongly influence a nation's actions and decisions. Widespread panic about communism caused many innocent people to be accused and punished unfairly, while the government overstepped its authority in the name of protection.
These actions harmed civil liberties and created long-lasting effects on immigrants and labor unions. Once the fear began to fade, the country recognized the need for change. As a result, reforms were made to better protect individual rights and limit government power, teaching an important lesson about the dangers of letting fear control a democracy.